Hi, welcome back to the Weekly Why weekly Parsha portion video. This week we have Parsha Yitro, or Parsha Yitro if you're from Poland. Here it starts off with Yitro, or again, Yisro, Moses' father-in-law, so that's Moses' wife, her father. What happens is Yitro is talking to Moses, and really he's criticizing Moses for having to deliberate all these questions of the Jews himself. We have is that all these questions that the Jewish people are coming to Moses about the law, Moses is having to field them all himself. And Yitro is criticizing him and saying, you can't possibly handle this all himself. You're going to have to really set up a whole system of judges who can help you with this. And so that's exactly what Moses does. He sets up a system of judges who can help him answer questions, and they set up judges for leaders of thousands and hundreds, and leaders of 50s and 10s. So there's an entire system here of people who are assisting Moses. And it's very interesting that this is kind of a consistent scriptural theme with Moses, that he has a certain amount of humility in terms of not just giving away some of the glory or kavod to others, but doing what's needed to be done even when it's not necessarily what he wants to be doing. For example, back in the Parsha Shemot, in, I believe, chapter 3 of the book of Exodus, with the burning bush, Moses, was arguing with God. Remember when God was saying to him, "You need to lead the Jewish people out of Egypt." Moses was saying, "Oh, you got the wrong guy. I don't speak well. I'm not a man of words. I don't think, and yet he still did it. He did it even though it was against his nature, and even though he didn't feel comfortable with it. He did it because he knew it was something that needed to be done for the Jewish people. And here, it's the same principle, although it's kind of the converse actions. In other words, okay, now Moses is getting used to the actions. He's taken the Israelites through 10 plagues, through the splitting the sea. They're finally out. And now Yitro's saying to him, okay, you need to give up some of that responsibility and, let others take it on. So again, this is Moses who's not becoming lazy or abdicating responsibility, but Moses is recognizing that, what? If something needs to be done for the Jewish people, it's something that I need to do, whether I necessarily want to do it or not. So this is quite the lesson for us, is that it's not whether we feel we're in the mood to do A or not to do A, but it's this what's needed for the Jewish people. And again, hopefully that's, I think, the lesson that we can take from Moses. There's also an interesting, this is in many respects the precedent for the Jewish idea of, looking to rabbis and teachers for guidance. There's a biblical concept called Torah lo b'shamayim hi. Torah is not in the heavens. And so one of the ideas we gain from that is that if you have a question, you have a question about the law, about the Torah, about reality, it's not that you clasp your hands together and ask God, because the reason for that is that if you're asking God for clarification on the Torah itself, that would mean that there's really a glaring omission in the Torah itself, and that there's something in the Torah which is not complete. And so the reason that Yitro is having all these questions, abdicated, that he's arbitrating all these questions, is that it gives the Israelites that question to ask the questions from the teachers of Israel, as opposed to just clasping their hands and each asking God themselves. That's simply isn't the way it's done. There's another significant kind of point from Parsha Yitro, which I do want to discuss also. So this is the Parsha where we have the first reading of the Ten Commandments. This is very significant because the Ten Commandments has, again, not Moses hearing this from God himself and then coming down, but this is all the Israelites hearing it as a nation. And again, you've probably heard this before at some point, but this is a uniquely unique event in the sense that no other religion or group has claimed a national revelation where God has spoken to all of them. And in a nutshell, this principle called the Kuzari principle, in a nutshell, what it's saying is that it's really impossible to concoct an entire national tradition out of thin air, saying that an entire nation witnessed such a thing if it didn't really happen. Again, we're not getting into this now, this is just a brief point, but the idea is that under this category, this category of a large identifiable nation of which you are a part, because again, the book of Exodus is claiming to the Israelites that this happened to their ancestors. It's not claiming that it happened to the Chinese or to the Indians, it's claiming that it happened to their ancestors. So again, in this category of, large claims of national traditions that impacted every single member of a group of which you are a member, When we look at, say, okay, well, our stories in this category generally false or generally true. In other words, other stories of nations who have this national tradition that every single member experienced something which had large impact. Again, didn't have to be national revelation, it could be a war or a migration, anything like that. But stories like this of such national magnitude, are they generally true or generally false or somewhere in the middle? And my understanding of certainly reading historians, I'm not a historian myself, but reading historians is that it is almost unanimously accurate in the sense that almost every single story, if not every single story, that of a group claiming a national event, that every single member of their group experienced something of such magnitude, has never really proven to be false. So that's a very interesting thing that should at least give us some pause in terms of giving the Sinai story at least some credibility, unless, of course, we face any disconfirming evidence. But again, at that point, this is just to give it, a certain amount of, just to take it at face value, at least for the time being. Okay, so that's it for the Weekly Why this week. Best wishes, Shabbat Shalom, take care.